From the studios of the Northeastern Service of All India Radio, we now welcome all our listeners to our live Radio Bridge program, and today the topic is socio-cultural sustainability in the Northeast. For this program, we have several participating AIR stations and with our panelists there, which includes from Aizawl, Tripura, Sikkim and Itanagar. Well, before I go ahead and introduce our panelists to you, let me just quickly tell you that Northeast India is a picturesque and bountiful land surrounded with green hills, magnificent dales, gushing waterfalls, meandering streams, along with its colorful and vibrant people, literally presenting a vivid spectrum like the colors of rainbow. Now, this pristine land is not only home to a rich and abundant flora and fauna, but also an abode of culture, festival, and lifestyle of the people inhabiting the land. Today, through this Radio Bridge discussion, we will not only bring alive the socio-cultural ethos of the region, but we will also try to look into some of the challenges faced in today's times of modernization and thereby the utmost importance of protection and sustainability of this rich, diverse, vibrant and unique social and cultural identity of this region. And to tell us all about it, we are being joined by our panelists. Let me go ahead and introduce them. Dr. Lalthan Sangi Fanai, who is an associate professor from the Department of English, Government, Aizawl College. Aizawl is with us. We are also very delighted to have in our midst Mr. Narendra Chandra Debbarma, who is the Honorable Minister, Revenue and Fisheries, Government of Tripura. We are also being joined by Dr. Nancy Choden Lalshongpa, who is the Head of Department of Sociology, Thadong College, Gangtok, Sikkim. And last but not the least, we are joined by Mr. Ranju Dodum, who is the Chief Editor, Dawnlit Post, Itanagar. And this is your anchor and the moderator of this program, Dr. Maushmi De Chakravarti. So there you have it. I heartily welcome all our panelists in Aizawl, Tripura, Sikkim and Itanagar to this live Radio Bridge program on the topic socio-cultural sustainability in the Northeast. So I wish you all a very good evening. I hope you're all there tuning in and you're there in your respective AIR stations. So everybody's there, I'm sure. So I would bring in our panelist, Mr. Narendra Chandra Debbarma, who is the Honorable Minister, Revenue and Fisheries, Government of Tripura. Sir, I'm sure you are there with us.
Yes, madam.
Yes. A very good evening, sir, and welcome to this live Radio Bridge program of ours. I would like to address the first question to you, sir. The people of the Northeast India have a rich social cultural heritage. You would surely agree to this.
Very good evening to all the listeners. This interactive program of different states, particularly of Sikkim, Mizoram, Tripura and so on. It is the 8th state of Northeastern region. It is known as the 8 Sisters. Yes, the Northeastern region, including the different states, we have the rich cultural spectrum, particularly in the stream of the folk music, folk dance, and also the classical music, particularly of the Hindustani Gharana. So far the Tripura is concerned, from the era of the royal kingdom, they are the patronized for all the cultural fora and also supporting and enthusiasing to the talented musician, artists, dramatists and so on. As you know that Tripura is really famous for our S.D. Burman and also his son R.D. Burman.
Right.
Apart from that, the very rich cultural side, particularly among the communities of the indigenous population, we have the experiences that the talents of the remote localities, they are being focused and also searched out by the public media like All India Radio and Radio etc.
Absolutely.
So
we
in
will
that
be coming
aspect,
back. Yes, we will be coming back to you. We will be coming back to you, sir. We will be coming back to you. We will be coming back to you.
Exposure.
Okay.
They got the exposure to the rest of the country through this public media like All India Radio.
Right. We will be coming back with you again, but let me just bring in the other panelists also who are with us. Okay, Mr. Ranju Dodum, are you there with us right now?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and a very good evening to all the listeners out there.
Absolutely. A very good evening to you too. So You have just heard the opening comments from our panelist Tripura. I'm sure that you would also agree to some of the points that he has made, that the Northeast, all the tribes have a very rich and vibrant socio-economic, socio and cultural ethos. The variety of dances, the festivals, that just comes out so gloriously alive in the festivals. So go ahead, share with us your thoughts when we talk about the social cultural heritage that we have, particularly of Itanagar.
Right. Do you want the long answer or the short answer?
You can go ahead and give me
Right. I'll try not to keep it too long.
Right.
But yes, I absolutely agree with what Sir had said regarding the rich heritage that we have of all the various tribes and ethnic groups in the region, in the Northeast itself.
Right.
You walk around 10 kilometers and then you'll find a different tribe. Even within the tribe, there'll be a different dialect. There's a different way of performing a certain ritual, or the costume, the traditional clothes would differ a little, which also indicates which clan you come from, your village you come from. So it's a rich tapestry of culture that we have all across the region, really. I mean, not just in the tribal areas, but also in the plains of Assam, where culture has thrived over decades and centuries, actually. So it's really, it really is a melting pot of cultures. And I think what's admirable is the fact that despite these different ethnic groups, we are still living relatively in peace. I mean, of course, there are certain differences that crop up at times, but socially we've been able to live closely and live in harmony. So
Absolutely. So
yeah.
You also agree that we are a rainbow. I mean, it's like a spectrum, like the colors of the rainbow. As you mentioned, that the clothings are so different, even when it comes to food, because there is currently a food fest going on, the food fest of Northeast that is going on currently in Shillong, and one has to just go there and really taste the different flavors of the Northeast, right? So I will be coming back to you, but then let me just bring in our other panelist, Dr. Lalthang Sangifanai.
I'm here. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be part of the group. Yeah, especially to talk about the rich social cultural heritage. I agree with Pandit Nehru saying that India is a garden of a variety of flowers, and I feel that Northeast is also a garden of variety of flowers. What with the ethnic groups, the tribes, the clans, the ways of life. Of course, I find it rich in every way. The cultural relics of the earlier periods and the ones that we find right now.
Yes, the Northeast having the spectrum of different culture and dialect languages, that's all right. But the diversity is itself in the formation of the unity, like the entire Bharat. So the very socio-cultural of the entire Northeast of different tribes, all different dialects. But at the same time, we are very much united rather, because the very ethnic identity and all cultural and socio-economic life.
Yeah, so
it's almost common.
Yes.
And entire Northeast, and particularly the folk culture or folk music. This is the rich one, undoubtedly, of all the state of the entire Northeast region, and in particular, so far the Tripura state is concerned, the folk music, is because I had some experiences to perform my duties in the All India Radio in my earlier days.
All right, wonderful.
We know what are the talents
that are available.
Available
Yes.
in different remote localities.
Absolutely.
Because of the communication
bottlenecks,
is not so much. That's why the searching of talents, I think this is to be continued like earlier days.
Absolutely.
Now also.
Yeah, just hold on to your thoughts, sir, because we have to just bring in Dr. Nancy Choden right now. We finally have you. Dr. Nancy, a very good evening and a warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties.
Never mind. As long as we have finally got you, we are so happy because you come from such a beautiful state called Sikkim. In fact, every part of Northeast is so beautiful. I mean, we have to just go outskirts from our capital to see the real beauty, right? So when you are talking about the social, cultural sustainability or the beauty of the Northeast, what are the first thoughts that comes to your mind? How proud a citizen are you?
Yeah, actually, so I wanted to say that I'm really glad that today we are discussing socio-cultural sustainability. Often, when we talk about sustainable development, people mostly focus on the economic and environmental aspect. Today, we are here discussing the social structures and the cultural system in place,
Absolutely.
which is very much one of the pillars of sustainability. So I feel coming from Sikkim, we also have a number of ethnic communities here, and we've been living in peace and harmony for so many decades. And of course, like you were saying, some of the challenges that we face, especially with regard to globalization, modernization forces, we see that there are a lot of changes taking place in Sikkimese society today, especially among the young lot. Cultural sustainability actually becomes a big challenge. How do you sustain it? And how do you present it to the younger generation as something that needs to be taken forward,
Right. We let us really talk about, sustainability, because that is one of the important aspect of this topic that we have taken up. And let me just bring in Mr. Ranju Dodum once again. Mr. Ranju, when do you agree that, some of the cultural heritage that we have, or the socio-cultural ethos that we have, is sometimes threatened by the forces of modernization, by the forces of westernization especially?
Absolutely. I think the problem is with regards to how we look at development. Every time you look at development, we're only thinking of building big concrete structures.
Right.
And what is development culturally is the introduction of music and art that is not indigenous to us. When we cannot necessarily fight these trends as well, with smartphones in everyone's hands and mobile connectivity improving day by day, which is a necessity in today's life. We cannot even dispose them, and we have to use them in our everyday lives. And that's where the challenge is how do you sustain your life as a modern person, but yet retain your identity as an indigenous person.
Right. So you are talking about balancing, right? You're talking about balancing between tradition and modernity.
Yeah.
So quickly, I just let me bring in Dr. Lalthang Sangi. When we are talking about balancing between the tradition that we have and the modern times of today, how do we bring in that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. How do we bring in that, you feel?
With us, I can talk only about the Mizo people, my people.
Right.
See, talking about dresses, costumes, we have those traditional costumes, like, we have weavings, puans. Usually, the older ones still wear the puans. But then the younger ones now, they're dressing up, westernized.
Yes.
But then, as we said, we need to blend the traditional and the modern techniques and maybe revive the old tribal knowledge and preserve anything that is necessary, like the culture, our social life. We need to identify the utility of different, natural things and preserve them not only for us, but for the future generation.
Yeah, for posterity to come, right? And I think Dr. Nancy would also agree to this.
Absolutely. That is exactly my point. Yes, I mean, for the youngsters to be able to balance the modern and the tradition, it becomes such a challenge. But thankfully in Sikkim, I noticed that now there is, revival of folk music, folk dance, even the desire to learn one's traditional language. I feel that is one positive step in the right direction.
But then we really cannot blame the younger generations too, right? Because they are in that era where technology has completely taken over their lives, right? I mean, you don't see, you cannot see a youngster, a schoolgoer or a college goer all the time. They are on their smartphone. So, Mr. Narendra Chandra Dev Burma, do you think that, these are some of the threats that is actually trying to conquer some of these cultural identity or the socio-cultural identity that we have, and how do we deal with it, therefore? Mr. Narendra Chandra, yes.
Cultural identity, yes, it is to be balanced in between the traditional and the modern. That's all right for the younger generation. But at the same time, the traditional culture, dance, music, it should not be only a museum piece.
Right.
It should be exercised by the younger generation, because the very identity of a particular human community, it is being preserved and protected. Then only they can protect their identity and their culture and language. That's why it is the necessity necessity not only for the present scenario but for the future also, so that the traditional art and culture that is to be preserved and also be practices by the younger generation from one to next generation and so on.
Absolutely. Mr. Ranju Dodum, you would agree to that, right? Because the younger generations are completely, in a different setup altogether. We really, Okay, Dr. Nancy.
Hello, yes.
Yes, Dr. Nancy, we really cannot blame the younger generations because I myself, I'm so closely associated with the younger generations. We do. I mean, you just have to give them a chance to showcase their culture, their tradition, and they're all gung ho about it, right? So how do we bring in the interest in them about their own culture, about their own identity, which is actually their heritage?
Yeah, actually, I think that it all starts with our socialization process,
Right.
which begins at a very, very young age.
And I think it begins in the family, would you say?
Yeah, and it begins even before we are born, right from the time your god bharai, all those must take place.
Okay.
That's when the whole socialization process begins. So I think the very beginning, like you said, if you begin with the mother and then the family, extend it to the family and then beyond, and you inculcate in the child your traditional language, customs, and all the other customs that come along with your particular culture, then I truly that will be imbibed in your everyday lifestyle.
And I think,
that is
and
the young generation has to deal with. Like,
right.
if everybody just goes around copying what is Western or what is American, then what is it that will make us unique from the other person sitting across the room?
Absolutely. And the foreigners from abroad, they come to India and they love our tradition so much. I mean, when the foreigner comes, I have not seen them wearing jeans, they are actually very happy wearing our dresses and our clothings.
True. That sense of pride, it needs to be inculcated in the young.
Right.
Thankfully, I think I can speak for Sikkim and say that when we go for our any traditional events or weddings, I find that the youngsters are always dressed up in their traditional costumes. Somewhere there, the culture does remain.
Absolutely, yeah. And if Mr. Ranju Dodum is now with us, sir, are you there with us now? Yes, Mr. Ranju Dodum. Okay, I think, yes. Oh God, yes, you are finally there. Thank you, yes. So tell us, so how do we inculcate the interest among the younger generation? Because I stress this because we as a country, we are a young country now. A large section of our population are the younger generations. So how do we bring in the interest of their culture within themselves?
That's a difficult one to answer. I think for the younger lot to take a renewed interest in their own culture, in their own past, that ultimately has to come from within. I mean, it's the youth who should feel the need to promote and preserve their culture. Hopefully that awakening doesn't come too late in the day after it's nearing extinction. I think what I see happening these days is quite encouraging in the form of how music and the introduction of actually Western instruments have helped promote local artists singing in their indigenous languages.
Right.
Because they have taken an old form and added it with the new instruments. So that way, at least there is an interest.
But then doesn't it take away the uniqueness of it?
Yeah, exactly. So what happens is that you'll have artists who are using guitars and drums and what have you. But there are also those artists who will want to go back to their roots, to understand where does our song come from? Why am I singing this song about a bird and how it began to fly? And then you begin to explore the old folk tales and folklores that we didn't get a chance to hear because we were listening to the Doordarshan televised programs, and we missed out on the opportunity to listen to our grandfather or grandmother or our elders tell these stories to us.
Absolutely.
So in a way, yeah.
Yeah, because, Dr. Lalthan Sangi, you would agree that in our times, when I was younger, I remember I heard a lot of tales from my grandfather especially, who would surround us and tell all his grandchildren old stories, the folk tales, the tales of yesteryears, and those actually we have internalized and they're still there. I think this is one way, right? This is one way. In what other ways do you think we can promote, we can bring in the culture, we can bring in the interest among the younger lot of today?
I was thinking about the importance of community life in this world of individualism.
Absolutely.
This is what the Western life has brought in. So I believe that we should be able to combine community life
Right.
with the individual life. So I think, first of all, oral literature would be, very handy.
Yeah.
Like talking about folk tales, by word of mouth, that would bring in the interest of our grandchildren, the smaller kids.
Right.
And we could also go on preserving culture by practicing traditional festivals, music, dances, art. Maybe we could have it annually, we could have it twice a year. We could have a department, even in the government, if that is possible. That would be reliving our traditional festivals,
Right.
our traditional music.
But we do have the Department of Art and Culture that is actually doing a lot to promote.
Yes, we do.
to promote. Because in Shillong also right now, as I had earlier mentioned, right now there is a Northeast Food Fest that is going on, a 3-day Northeast Food Fest, where indigenous food is being prepared there, showcased there, and the younger lot and so many people are actually getting to taste it. And I think some other ways, if I can just bring in Mr. Narendra Chandra, would festivals be another way? Because, Meghalaya is also known for a number of festivals that we have so very often. So do you think festivals can also be one way of promoting the indigenous culture, socio-culture of the state?
Right. From the recent past, there are the activities, particularly from the younger generation, for organizing food festival in different state capital, not only in the state capital, but in the other district level also. And it is a very encouraging side for the revival and also improvisation of the food habits and the traditional as well as the modernity. I think it will be more and more popular in the coming days about the food festival
Yeah.
this and that.
Yeah, not just
Because
food
not
festival.
only
Yeah.
in the state capital, but also in Delhi. Delhi also, they are having that type of things.
But when you're talking about Delhi, sir, is it always, so that we should keep our culture within our people? Or should we showcase our culture to the rest of the country, to the rest of the world? Isn't that also important? So, Mr. Ranju Dodum, tell us your thought on this, because very often what happens, we are so protective about our own culture, about our own identity, that we are sometimes reluctant to share our culture, showcase it to the rest of the people.
Is that really the case? I mean, I don't know, because we keep having these festivals all across all the states in the region.
No, but how
And,
often does it happen, sir? How often does it happen? It may be just once in a year affair, but is it enough? Is it sufficient?
I mean, festivals really can't be the sustainable model for
One
for
of the
promoting
model,
or
yeah.
preserving. Yeah,
One of the model.
I mean, it's definitely one of the models, but it's not something that can be looked at as being a long-term plan. Definitely highlight the culture, the food for those 3 days, or as it happens with Hornbill, 10 days. But yes, you're right. I mean, is there enough time to preserve, to promote, and share our culture with people who are from or outside the region, or from within the region also,
Right.
but from outside the state? Is that a sustainable model? I'm not exactly sure about.
So according to you, which are your ways you feel we can sustain it, which can bring in sustainability?
I think everything needs to be a year-long and annual, not just an annual event, but an year-long,
A sustained
year-long
one,
promotion,
right?
sustained promotion. Yeah, sustained promotion of our culture, of our food, and that should be done through events. Smaller events, not necessarily every event has to be, has to have a very high budget or anything. Instead of that, actually, if you usually see what happens with these festivals is that, you're having it in Itanagar, you're having it in Shillong, you're having it in Kohima, in the capitals basically. But it's not reaching out to the
Rural areas.
people in the rural areas, in the districts. So instead of having this one mega festival in the capital where you try and get in as many foreigners and Indian tourists as you can, these should be more sustained events, should be held across the states, across the districts as well. That way would be,
Yeah, that's an important point, because India lives in its villages, right? And the Northeast too, because one has to just go away from the capital city to really see the gloriousness of the culture of everything that is there, and it is so unique, so beautiful, right? And Dr. Nancy, when we are talking about promotion of language, I don't know how it is in your state, but then increasingly there is a slant for children to take up a subject called alternative English in lieu of their MIL or their mother language. Do you think that should be actually be encouraged?
In Sikkim, at least at even in the schools and in the college and postgraduate level, we have introduced traditional languages. There are quite a few students who have actually taken interest in it. So I feel that is one positive thing that has happened. One thing that I wanted to say was that when we talk about sustainability, we also need to understand that culture is something that is a shared heritage of man.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, it cannot be permanent because it is learned and it is passed on from one generation to the next. I mean, it is bound to go through some changes.
Changes, yes.
Some subtle changes. Like I was just thinking, as Ranju was speaking, I was just thinking like the traditional bakhu that we wear, the dress that the Bhutia women wear in Sikkim, the way it was wrapped during my late grandmother's time and the way that it is worn today in my generation it's totally undergone a change.
Okay.
Women don't have that luxury of time to, wrap that entire dress around their body. So now they go for something that is quick,
Right.
And so even culture has to adjust according to the changing times, right?
Right.
So,
very true. Very true. I mean, we shouldn't be so very stiff in our mindset that
is
we
my point.
that we cannot just remain in those years that have already gone by. But then we also have to change with the time.
At the same time, it doesn't mean that you with open arms,
Embrace, yes.
embrace Western culture or any other
Forgetting,
culture.
forgetting our
And
own
just
culture.
Drop your heritage and tradition behind.
Right.
That is again a very negative approach. So one needs
Absolutely.
to learn to balance it.
Absolutely. I
Like
think,
Ranju was saying,
yeah.
it's not something that comes from having a festival once a year or just wearing traditional dresses every once in a while, but it is something that has to be incorporated in our everyday, in our daily life.
In our daily life and living, right? So as we are almost wrapping up this program, because I'm just left with 2 more minutes, let me just take quick 20 seconds closing comments from each one of you, and I bring in Dr. Lalthang Sangifhanai once again. What would be your closing comments, therefore, when we are talking about the sustainability of our social cultural heritage?
As we go on talking about the blending of the traditional and the modern techniques, as we talk about us, the older ones, opening our hearts to the younger ones, I would like us to return to the study of subjects such as civics, moral science, for moral life in educational institutions. That would very much help preserve our culture, our identity, whatever that we need to share. And I would also like to have programs, the likes of which had been organized by NEZCC, wherein all states of the Northeast share our lifestyles, our culture, our dances, our music, our arts, festivals.
Absolutely.
That's where we come in, integrate.
Okay. So such activities should be a sustained one, should be a prolonged one, and shouldn't be a once-in-a-while affair, right? And we should definitely involve the younger generations in it, because they are the future to carry it forward along with them. Unfortunately, I'm completely running out of time, so I apologize to all of our panelists, but then we have agreed to the fact that art, culture, music, heritage really adds to the value of the people of the region, right? So on that note, I thank each one of our panelists from Aizawl, from Tripura, from Sikkim, and from Itanagar for joining us in this live Radio Bridge program on the socio-cultural sustainability in the Northeast. Thank you very much. That the engineers on duty in the Northeastern service of All India Radio today were Sushiz Chaudhary and Hobing Lingdaw. Thank you very much. And this program has been produced by J. Gangte. Your anchor and your moderator, Dr. Maushmi De Chakraborty, once again wishes all of you a big thank you and